Congratulations, your offer was accepted and you are officially under contract on a home in Texas. This is an exciting milestone, but it's also where many buyers start to feel overwhelmed because there are deadlines, inspections, paperwork, and a lot of decisions that happen in a short amount of time. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what happens after you go under contract so you'll know what to expect from day one all the way to closing. If you're interested in all things Houston, including the northern suburbs, then subscribe and you'll be the first to know about the current real estate market here in Houston, Texas. My name is Erica Sprague. I'm the broker and owner of Lane Realty, and I have worked, lived, and played in the North Houston area for almost 20 years. I love helping others move to and around this amazing community. So whether your move is 9 days or 90 days from now, reach out. We'd love to hear from you and learn how we can help you make your move to Houston a smooth one. Step 1, your earnest money and your option fee. One of the first things you'll do after your offer is accepted is deliver the earnest money and the option fee to the title company. You can usually do this electronically. If you prefer to have a personal or a cashier's check delivered to title, that is acceptable as well. As you now know, the title company is the facilitator in the real estate transaction here in Texas. So they will hold your money in escrow, and this will be held and contributed towards your closing, assuming you make it to that point. Your earnest money is protected through the option periods, and your option fee is the exclusive right for the buyer to do inspections, to negotiate any repairs, and to have the exclusive right to walk away if something doesn't go right. If you're not able to agree on inspection repairs needed, if you find another house in that time period that meets your needs better, you walk away and all you lose as the buyer is your option fee, which is awarded to the seller. Your earnest money still makes it all the way to closing if you do make it through the option period, as well as your option fee that is credited to you at closing and is given to the seller at that time. The earnest money is typically 1% of the purchase price. This can be negotiable. You've already handled this part, but this is your skin in the game. It shows the seller that you're serious, and it's typically 1% of the purchase price here in Texas. The contract has a deadline. You have 3 business days to get your earnest money and your option fee to title. And this is really important because if you don't, then your option period does not exist and you do not have that exclusive right to do inspections, negotiate repairs, all those things. So really make sure that you are familiar with the dates in your contract and you respond timely to the requests from title. Okay, step 2 is scheduling the home inspection. And you want to schedule these inspections as soon as possible so that you can maximize the time in your termination period. And these inspections are the general home inspection. You might want an HVAC company to come out and look at those units separately. This can be real important if those units are older because your general inspector is normally not going to look under the hood of these HVAC units. If the roof is older, you might want to have a roofing contractor come out and take a look. Having someone who will actually get up on the roof can be advantageous. Many inspectors just get their drone up there and kind of take an overview. If you think there might be some plumbing issues going on, you might want to have a plumber come out and look at those. If there's a pool, you definitely want to have a pool inspection, and you want to have a pest inspection. The great thing is that your realtor normally has a great inspector that can resource these out. So they might have someone who does the pool inspection. They probably have someone who does the pest inspection, maybe in-house or just people they work with regularly. So that's real important. Those are the big ones up front. After you get that inspection done, if you see things that are coming up like, okay, the window seals are broken, you can reach out to a window company. They can give you an estimate. Sometimes they can do that just by looking at the reports. Other times they might need to come out and do that, but that's normally a pretty quick fix. If you have some electrical items, some plumbing items, then that is a conversation between you and the seller, how you want to handle that. Sometimes those are things that you can get a good ballpark number on before you agree to anything, and that will help you move forward. The third thing is to review the inspection report. You've had all your inspectors come out and now you've got all this data to review. The first thing I would encourage you to not do is not panic if the report is very long. The inspectors are normally going to be pretty thorough and pretty detailed, and the code for items and construction changes every 2 to 3 years depending on the item. What you need to understand is that the seller is not responsible for bringing items up to code. They are responsible and should be willing to fix things that are deficiencies, safety issues, and health issues. So you really want to focus on those items. Cosmetic items are not really where you want to spend your time. You want things to work as they should. And the best thing for you to do is to negotiate a concession from the seller. This way, the seller can give you an amount of money that you guys agree upon, and you can handle the repairs as you see fit once you take ownership of the home. This really eliminates a lot of those feelings that can come up, like maybe you feel the seller repaired things in a way that was most cost effective for them, but would not be how you would choose to handle it. And so negotiating a concession is usually what I recommend to home buyers and home sellers alike. The fourth step is the appraisal. And normally lenders wait to order the appraisal until you clear your termination period, which is also called the option period. We use those terms interchangeably, but in your contract, it is called the termination period. So if you are getting financing, your lender will order this appraisal. That is something that you pay for up front. The lender will charge you for this. And the appraiser determines the home's market value and make sure that that supports the purchase price that you've agreed to. Sometimes, depending on how much you're putting down, this can be waived by the lender because they see that you're going to have enough equity in the home to offset the purchase price. And if the appraisal comes in at or above the purchase price, you're great. You're good to go. As a buyer, you have some built-in equity there. And if it comes in below the sales price, then that's an opportunity for you, the home buyer, and the seller to have a conversation about what everyone is willing to do. Do you need another appraisal? Could it be possible? And it is possible that the inspector that came was not familiar with the area. It could be possible that they did not have knowledge of some of the upgrades and work that had been done to the home. And so this conversation is real important. Can we get another appraisal? Are either of us willing to bend? Is the seller willing to come down? Is the buyer willing to come up out of pocket to cover some of the difference? It is just a conversation, and hopefully everyone can get to a place that makes sense for them. Step 5 is the loan approval. So again, assuming you are obtaining financing for this home purchase, while inspections and the appraisal are happening, your lender continues to work behind the scenes, and you are going to be asked for updated documents. So when you applied for the home, you might have gotten your pre-qual or your pre-approval a few months ago, and they asked you for some financial data. And now they're going to ask you to update all those things. They want current pay stubs, current bank statements, your tax returns if you haven't submitted those already, and your employment verification. Responding quickly helps your closing stay on schedule. If you can have all of this information before you ever start the loan process, that is even better because it simplifies the process and keeps people moving along. What you definitely don't want to do if you are needing financing to purchase your home is to make any major financial decisions at this time without speaking to your lender. So generally speaking, you don't want to buy a car. You don't want to buy a bunch of furniture. You don't want to buy a boat. You don't want to pay off a credit card unless your lender has told you, we need you to do this to get your DTI better or to raise your credit score. So confirm any and all financial purchases with your lender before you complete them if you are needing the financing for this home purchase. Step 6, the title policy and the survey. In your contract, you negotiated who would pay for the title policy and who would pay for the survey. Now, what is the title policy? The title policy is what the title company researches in order to make sure that the home is free and clear of any outstanding liens. So is there a mortgage? The title company is going to find out. Is there a mechanical lien on the house? The title company is going to find out. Is there a lien from the HOA because they haven't paid their dues? The title company is going to find out. And once they identify any and all liens on the property, they go back to the seller and say, hey, these are the liens that are on the property. Is this correct? And they make sure all of those things are paid off before or at closing so that you, the buyer, receives a free and clear title. This survey is a physical drawing of the property and the lot that it's on. So you will see exactly what's there. You'll see the easements that are there for your utility companies, and you will see if there's any power lines or anything like that. Let's say you want to build a pool, and in the backyard, you're able to see what runs through the middle of the yard, if anything. And so you will know, okay, yes, I can build a pool, or no, I cannot. These are my limitations and these are my abilities here, knowing that physical drawing of the property. Step 7 is homeowners insurance. And this is really needing to be started at the beginning or in conjunction with many of these other things. So you will need insurance. If you're getting a loan, the lender will require proof of insurance. And normally they'll give you an estimate at the very beginning of the process. So you might have an idea of what your monthly payment's going to be like. But You will need that before you close, and you want to shop around because all insurance brokerages are not the same, and you want to make sure you understand the type of coverage they're quoting you. Even if you're not getting a loan, you want to have your property insured because we live in Houston. We get a lot of winds. Depending on where you purchase your home, hurricanes could be more of an issue. We do get hail, and all these things really can affect your property. So you definitely want to have what is typically the most expensive asset people have. You want to make sure that it's taken care of. The final walkthrough. Usually 24 to 48 hours before you close on the home, you go back to the property and you walk through the house. This is not another inspection. This is to, one, confirm visually that any and all repairs have been completed. If you did agree to have the seller complete repairs, you should have already received the invoices for those. You are there to make sure that the property is in the same condition it was when you went under contract. So there's no new cosmetic defects, right? Let's say you walk in the home and all of the walls were good to go as they should be, and then you do the walkthrough and there's a hole in the wall near the front door because they were moving furniture. This would be something that you would spot and say, hey, this needs to be addressed. We need to figure out a way to work through this. You want to make sure that all the appliances and fixtures that were agreed upon in your contract are still at the property as well. Oftentimes there's confusion over the appliances of refrigerator, washer, and dryer. If you do not request that those items stay in a non-realty agreement in your contract, the seller does not have to leave them. They can advertise that they are for sale. However, unless you get it in writing in your contract that they are staying with the homes and you get to that house and they're not there, they're not obligated to do anything for you. So make sure you know the details of your contract and make sure you understand that appliances like those will not stay. Your appliances in the kitchen, the microwave, the stove, the dishwasher, those guys are fixed to the property. They will be there when you get there. Step 9 is closing day. And this is the day you've been waiting for. You'll sign all your closing documents. You'll provide any remaining funds, and that's normally communicated from your lender and the title company. They get together, they complete their closing disclosure and make sure it all balances out. You're given this total usually 2 to 3 days before closing. Every once in a while you have kind of a last minute situation you might not know until the day before. If you want to wire your funds to the title company, you're going to want to call them and ask them to communicate the wiring instructions over the phone or have them email them directly to you. Wire fraud is a real thing. There are lots of criminals out there who take pride in tricking people, and the emails they send out look like they are identical to the title company. They just have maybe one letter or something like that different. If you do get an email from the title company with wiring instructions, you will want to call the title company, the number that you have, and confirm this is what they sent and this is where the money needs to go to. So wiring that is faster and easier. Usually most people don't want to take a cashier's check of $100,000 or more around with them to closing. You will need your driver's license. If you don't have a driver's license, if you have a passport, if you have a visa, this documentation should have already been discussed what you need. You will need to bring those to closing with you. Once the documents have been signed, title will send those documents over to the lender. The lender will review them and make sure they're good with everything. And once they are, they give the go-ahead to the title company to fund the transaction. And this is when you will get your keys and any and all remotes unless they've been left at the house, which is very common. And you are a homeowner and you own a home in Texas. These are some of the common questions buyers ask throughout transactions in Texas. And one of them is, can I move in on closing day? And generally the answer is yes. Funding is one of the key words here. So as long as the wire from your lender or your bank is at title and you close normally before, we're going to say 2 or 3 p.m., you're going to be able to fund it. You're going to be able to move into that house that same day. If your wire doesn't hit the title company early enough, it may not fund until the following day. So you want to make sure all those things have been discussed throughout your transaction and when you get down closer to closing. Also, if the seller has negotiated a lease back from you during that course of that contract, then you would not be moving in on closing day. You would be waiting until that lease back is over. Can I buy furniture before closing? This is what we talked about earlier. You don't want to make any major financial purchases, and furniture is expensive. So you don't want to do that unless you have spoken with your lender. Your lender can give you the ultimate go-ahead on that. The general rule of thumb is no, you need to wait until you close on your home. How long does the process usually take? So usually lenders, if you are getting financing, can Get your transaction done in 30 to 45 days. Jumbo loans, where you're buying a much more expensive house, these normally take longer. There's a little bit more involved in the loan process, and that could be closer to 45 days. We have a lot of lenders who are really great. They have their processors in-house, their underwriters are in-house, and a lot of them can close in 21 to 27 days. That is a good ballpark number. Most people come in and write contracts for 30 days because the contract states on or before. So if your lender can close earlier and the seller can accommodate an earlier close, then you're good to go. You don't have to modify anything there. If you're paying cash, normally it's about 2 weeks. The title company needs a little bit of time to get your title policy free and clear. If there's an HOA involved, to get their data, sometimes they drag their feet. They normally tell you 10 business days, could be more. So again, a cash transaction, probably looking at 2 weeks minimum if those things are in play. Buying a home isn't just about getting your offer accepted. It's about successfully navigating every step that follows. The good news is that with the right team guiding you, the process is very manageable. Understanding what's coming next allows you to make informed decisions and enjoy the excitement of becoming a homeowner in Texas. If you're thinking about buying a home in the North Houston suburbs, I'd love to help you. Whether you're relocating from another state or buying locally, my goal is to make the process clear, organized, and as stress-free as possible. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and leave your questions in the comment. I'd be happy to answer them in a future video.